started. There we go. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mike, and he will introduce Amanda, and we'll get started. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thanks, Carly, and welcome everybody to TUC. My name is Mike Julian. I'm Chief Revenue Officer with Tantalus, and today it's my pleasure to introduce Amanda Wood from Becker and Poliakoff. Amanda's Senior Federal Advocacy Director with Becker, and just for a little bit of background, Tantalus has been partnered with Becker for a little over a year now, I guess, and we've been hard at work, obviously, with a plethora of federal funding initiatives that are at various stages of being kicked off. But we've been certainly hard at work educating the broader Tantalus user community on the various funding streams. We've had the privilege to work alongside many of you in facilitating applications through FEMA resiliency programs, helping you engage with your broader community to access funds from the American Recovery Plan, and preparing for what Amanda will cover today, some of the upcoming specifics around the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and other funding streams related to EVs and broadband. So certainly it's been our privilege to work alongside Becker. We're excited to continue that into the new year. What I want to leave you with today as we wrap up is that many of the initiatives and new solutions that were just covered in the opening ceremony, whether it's related to migrating your ERT population, adding analytics and resiliency programs, or some of the exciting new applications related to the TrueSense Gateway, these are all allowable uses of these various federal funding streams. And we're anxious to help you navigate some of those processes as they become clearer to all of us. Unfortunately, although as a surprise to no one, our federal government isn't moving quite as quickly as we would like to see. But certainly the takeaway after Amanda provides you the update will be to certainly reach out to us, either to myself, to Amanda directly through our federal funding page on our website. As we'll certainly keep this group up to speed on some of the new developments, but we're anxious to work alongside each and every one of you to help you allocate as many of these funding programs as possible to your various initiatives within your community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda to provide you an update on where we are and what to expect.
Great, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Carly. I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll run through some slides. Look forward also to any of your questions at the end of this session. So today, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act turned 1 year and 1 day old. Yesterday was its big first birthday. And, we've had some progress in terms of funds being rolled out. As Mike said, it's been slower than we'd like, but not unexpected when the federal government is doing some really ambitious and new things that they've never done before. So this bill was signed into law 366 days ago and created $102 trillion in new federal spending over 5 years, sort of a stunning amount of spending, following 5 other bills that had extraordinary spending over the past sort of 18 to 24 months. This bill's different. It is not about COVID relief. It's not about economic recovery. It's really about long-term economic growth, long-term resiliency, long-term infrastructure improvements, and so it's a bill that funds programs over the next 5 years. So we'll have lots of bites at this apple once it becomes really available to us. And I think the really remarkable thing about this is that the federal government has greatly expanded their definition of what infrastructure is. We see funding for broadband access we've never seen before. Grid resiliency we've never seen before, the first federal investment in EV charging infrastructure as well. I'm going to run through some of the programs we're most excited about. We know a lot about these programs, except their solicitations haven't come out. And there are 3 that are very grid specific, and they overlap in a lot of ways. I think you're going to find out that you're going to be eligible for 2 or even 3 of these. And we can help you navigate what's going to be the best fit for your project. But these are going by their section numbers, which is a very DC thing to do. So section 40101 is going to be a great, opportunity for you all to implement monitoring and control technologies, utility pole management, reconductoring of power lines, weatherization. Really, all of these have a focus on resiliency and making sure that power is available in a sustainable way and an equitable way to all of your users. Then we have Section 40107, the Smart Grid Investment Grant Program, another $600 million a year for the next 5 years, an extraordinary amount of funding. And I should say, all these are programs where you all will be able to apply directly to the federal government. Not all federal programs work that way. Some of them you apply through the state. Some of you have experience with that. Some of the other programs I'll mention today are also applications through your state for federal funding. For all these, you'll be able to apply directly, which is very exciting. So, integration of distributed energy resources, grid investments that provide flexibility and help you rebalance the electrical system, something I know you guys think about and talk about a lot. And then making sure that you all can mitigate the impacts of extreme weather. So again, resilience is the key word. And then Section 40103, again, these all sound very similar. They're slightly different, but another $1 billion a year for the next 5 years. It's all about innovative approaches in this one. So enhancing resilience and reliability, demonstrating new approaches. You all, I know as a group, are very forward thinking. This is your opportunity to show off the really sort of innovative, progressive things that you all want to do when it comes to technology and ensuring reliability of your grid. So I want to pause for a minute and let you know the federal government and this administration care a lot about resiliency, but they also care about some other things. So as you are thinking about applying for these funds, think also about how you can work some really key administration initiatives into your applications. And we'll help you do this. We can help you with language when the time comes. So community engagement, investing in workforce, advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and also making sure that this project benefits disadvantaged communities. I think when people think about disadvantaged communities, their mind goes to urban communities. That's not what this means. This means any disadvantaged communities. There's also a real focus on rural equity and rural access. So no matter what sort of community you're in, you're going to want to really get that, Biden administration mindset and buzzwords into your application to make it as strong as possible. When these grants come out, we'll provide sort of a rubric for each, letting you know how they're going to be scored. We can provide you with language for your applications. Just know that we're here to make the process easier on you, less intimidating, and ultimately more successful, we hope. Okay, so I have news on this one, sort of breaking news. Today is the 16th. On the 18th, the FCC is going to release some really important maps. The Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program provides $42.45 billion for high-speed internet throughout the country. These are funds that are going to go through the states. They gave states some planning money this summer, but they're not giving states their full allocations or asking them to turn in a spending plan until these really important FCC maps come out. So these maps are meant to be, a really, we hope, accurate sort of determination of where these funds are needed to be expended, where people do not have access to high-speed internet on a state-by-state basis. FCC has taken a long time doing this. They think it's pretty accurate, but states and local governments and tribal governments and ISPs are going to have a few months. So, you'll want to take a look at these maps when they come out, see if they make sense to you. There is an opportunity if you think that you have sort of much less broadband saturation in your community than the map reflects. I think it makes sense to contest these to make sure that you all are going to be as competitive as possible for these funds when your state begins their process. So this is a real turning point this Friday. We see these maps, we see what eligibility is going to look like, and we can start planning, and states can start planning for how they're going to distribute this extraordinary amount of funding. We had a couple bills over the past few years that have had some broadband funding. There's often USDA funding, there's Reconnect funding. There was, I think, $280 million in NTIA funding through the Department of Commerce through the CARES Act. Maybe as maybe it was the American Rescue Plan. I think it was the American Rescue Plan Act. But that is really small potatoes compared to what we're going to be seeing in terms of broadband funding. And NTIA had never, ever done broadband funding under Commerce before. It always sort of been a function of USDA. And they did a really, really nice job with the first 280 million in terms of running the program. I think, you know, they got some training wheels with that, and now they're going to be ready to take off and really push these funds out quickly as soon as we get these maps and state plans in order. Okay, so here's another one that is moving, which is exciting. So this is the very first time that the federal government is making an investment in state and local cybersecurity. $185 million a year for the next 5 years. These funds are going to flow through states. So states actually, gosh, I guess it was 2 days ago, states had to put together their plan for and submit their plan for how they're going to prioritize projects within their state. So we should know in the next 45 to 60 days how every state plans to do that. It's interesting. The federal government has identified the fact that a lot of local governments, utilities, and public agencies haven't even gotten sort of past the planning stage and assessment stage on what needs to be done for cybersecurity. So this first year of funding, this first $185 million, will be all about funding planning and funding, sort of a roadmap for how to ensure cybersecurity on a locality by locality basis. And then the next 4 years are going to be for actual implementation. So exciting that we have, the federal appropriations process year after year. We start it late, we finish it late. There's always uncertainty about funding. All of these funding streams are 5-year dedicated funding sources. So if you're not ready to apply in this first round, you have other chances, and you can apply multiple times. Okay, this is also a first time ever grant. Some of you may have heard about the $7.5 billion the federal government is putting into EV charging. $5 billion of that is going through states through something called the NEVI program, a National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. All those funds have been allocated to states. States have submitted spending plans, and this fall, all 50 states plus the territories had their spending plans approved. So that is funding that the state is controlling. It's for really high traffic corridors only for DC fast charging. And some states, Ohio just put out their RFP for those funds for implementers just last week. What I'm excited about is the extra $2.5 billion in funding over 5 years, which has not rolled out yet, but will soon. And this is a program where you all will be able to apply directly to the federal government for these discretionary funds. We know there'll be a 20% match requirement. A lot of these funding streams do have match requirements, some do not. When we talk one-on-one, I can walk you through that. And there are also creative ways to fund a match through in-kind contributions or things of that nature. But this is going to be a great opportunity, again, with a focus on equity and making sure that whether it's urban or rural, that more and more people have access to EV charging infrastructure, which is really the federal government's trying to encourage uptake of electric vehicle purchases. So this is meant to give people confidence that they'll be able to charge their vehicle once they purchase one. Okay, I cannot have a conversation with a public agency without talking about the American Rescue Plan Act. This is the bill that was passed 2 Aprils ago. $350 billion in direct allocations to state and local governments. So roughly 2,000 cities and counties received direct allocations through that. But then several thousand more have received funding through required allocations from your state. If you're not aware of what your municipality or your county received, I'm not surprised. Because I think that city and county administrators have sort of kept this a little close to the vest so they can control the funding. But the work you all are doing is 100% an allowable use. Half that funding came through last year. The second half came through this summer. And so probably folks in your administration or your commission or your council are right now deciding how to spend that second half. And this was all about 2 tranches because it's to make you whole. That was kind of last year. This year is to be able to do the ambitious things that you've always wanted to do. So if you're curious about that American Rescue Plan Act allocation, please get in touch with me. I can let you know what it is. I can arm you with what you need to march into the office and say, hey, we got a project that qualifies. We want to get our fair share. So please call on me for that. Okay, so we also passed another bill. This is the one that I didn't think this was going to pass. This is the one where you heard about Senator Manchin and Senator Schumer and all the negotiations and this summer, and it was supposed to be sort of the big social spending bill. It ended up being more pared down, but it included a lot of tax credits that public agencies are going to be able to access. We are still waiting for the Treasury Department. This one just passed, a few months ago. We're still waiting for the Treasury Department to put out the final rules, which they will do prior to January 1st because they want to implement these tax credits quickly. The really exciting thing about this is that, entities that don't pay taxes have not classically benefited from tax credits. The way this is structured is that you'll be able to receive direct payments from Treasury if you would otherwise qualify for a tax credit but don't pay taxes. So, it is for energy facilities, EV deployment, renewable fuels, energy efficient building design, conversion of vehicle fleets. So once this all comes out, we'll push it out to you. But I think you all are going to be able to benefit certainly from both, the project costs and the production tax credit. So we're excited about that as well. And that should roll out much faster than the very slow IIJA funds. Okay, one of the things I always talk with people about is the fact that your community may have unspent funds. And I think sometimes when there are unspent federal funds, people get embarrassed and think the money disappears and sort of don't pursue it further. So I always like to ask about this because that's not the case. These federal agencies really want funds to be expended. It's very, very hard for Secretary Buttigieg to go up to the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee and say, I need more money when they have funds that are supposed to be pushed out that haven't been spent. So very often we can get funding reprogrammed if we can identify that your public agency has federal funding, maybe for another purpose that has not been expended. And also, sometimes it makes sense to partner with other grantees. Sometimes there are grants that require research partners. Sometimes there are grants that really focus on emergency management and resiliency from that standpoint. So happy to talk with you about a strategy to sort of look beyond the obvious to get some of your priorities funded. Okay, so here are sort of my tips on key indicators of funding success. So it is not about the shopping list. It's not about what you want to buy. It's about how you're helping your community. It's about the use case. So think as you're putting together projects about how the tools you want to purchase will improve the quality of life for your residents, ensure reliability, ensure equity, things of that nature. Important to show a local commitment to this effort. Love to get local letters of support. Love to have buy-in from anybody who will be impacted by this project. And sometimes you're going to have to coordinate with other local agencies. That could be your local emergency managers, for example, or economic development folks. If you know you're applying for a grant early, sometimes we can get you in to pitch your project, get feedback before the application period opens. That's a nice advantage. Sometimes you need a research partner for grants. And that's not the case with most of the ones today. There is that one innovation grant that we think may require a research partner. So think about local universities. If you don't have one you're already partnered with, we can help you with that. You all deal with data all day. And I think, the federal government likes to see results through data, but I think you can also use data to tell your story and demonstrate need. And so I just really urge you to collect that data. Go ahead and make sure that it lines up with your story and use that data to maximize your funding success. Demonstrate a solid stewardship of grant funding. This is important because the same people keep getting grants, and that's because they've been successful with grants. I see that once a community has success with a federal agency, it often translates to success with other federal agencies. So if you have had issues with federal agencies in terms of drawdown or expenditure of funds, please try to clean those up. It doesn't happen often, but once in a while I discover this. So I always ask, what is your experience with federal funding? Have you had a positive experience? So that if there are any outstanding issues, things that need to be closed out, we can close those out so you can be really successful going forward. And then definitely arm your elected officials to advocate for you. members of Congress and senators really want to show that they are looking out for you. They want to be helpful. They get so many requests, and I know they want to help with every one of them. So what I usually recommend is, if you're applying for a grant and we can help you with this, put together a one-pager, just reach out to your member of Congress or senator, prepare a draft letter of support, make it really easy on them, because when it comes down to it, this is a political process. So in a typical grant, for example, let's say there are 1,000 applicants, maybe 300 of them from the very start just are not eligible. They are not, they haven't submitted a complete application. 500 of them are sort of moderate. Let's say there are 200 really highly qualified, highly scored grants, but they can only find 100 of them. That's where the politics comes in. So if you submit a solid application, having your member of Congress and senator weigh in, providing them with talking points, providing them with draft letters of support, really does make a huge difference. These federal agencies, there's some oversight from Congress. This is how our system is set up. So little checks and balances. So let's have your member of Congress sort of checking in on the federal agencies to advocate for you. So this is kind of cool and different. So because so many of these programs are really completely brand new, out of new offices that didn't even exist a year ago, they've been very collaborative with potential grantees about putting together these new grants. So we did see, requests for information on some of the grid grants in the past year. Just in the past couple of weeks, Department of Energy has put out some requests for information on some of the rural focused grants. So, I think this is a nice opportunity for you to weigh in. They have a series of questions, and you do have a little bit of time on one of them and more time on the other. But so here's this new program, the Rural and Municipal Utility Grant Program, $250 million over 5 years. They have some questions. They want to know how you would potentially use these funds. They want to know what your cybersecurity threat status is. So by December 19th, you could submit your input to help shape this program. The next one, the energy improvements in rural remote areas, $200 million over 5 years. We have information on the eligible uses, but the program managers want more information from you about how you would use these funds and what a priority is for you. So a couple of nice opportunities for you to weigh in. It does not have to be super formal, but if you want to take a look at these RFIs, submit an email for this one by November 28th, which is creeping up on us. I'd really encourage you to do so, because it's it's rare the grantees have the opportunity to help shape new federal funding streams like this. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm here to help. Got a whole team around me. So happy to talk with you one-on-one, provide an analysis of federal funding streams, provide draft narratives, really try to make the process as easy as possible on you. You do not need to have submitted a federal grant before. I don't want this to be intimidating. We're here to make it easy on you, hold your hand every step of the way, put you face-to-face with program officers when we can, do that important engagement of your congressional delegation for political support, and then, help you through the process of drawing down the funds. It does not have to be overwhelming, intimidating. I'm here to demystify it, I hope, and really encourage you to chase after and get your fair share of federal funding. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks so much, Amanda. I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but if anybody has questions, go ahead and type them in. Or if you'd prefer to unmute yourself and ask the group, then that's great as well.
Does anybody here have any experience with federal grants, positive or negative, that they want to share with anyone? Oh, Amanda, put your email up again. You know what? I think I'm going to put it in the chat so people can cut and paste it. How about that? To everyone in meeting. And you can go through me. You can also go through the folks you work with at Tantalus. I'm going to make sure that we're both on any conversation that we're having, because sometimes you all have technical questions, and I find the work that Tantalus does and you all do with them fascinating. because I'm not a technical person, you know, on that side. I'm really sort of a political and policy and that sort of person. So I enjoy learning about the technology and always like to have my friends at Tantalus on board for these conversations. Have any of you given any thought to some of these grants beyond sort of the grid grants, like are the EV grants, the broadband grants? Is that something you all are considering pursuing as well? Anyone want to raise their hand and talk about that? I guess my presentation was very complete.
Amanda, do we have any examples to share of, I know that, you know, we were waiting for a bunch of funding streams to open up for application, but do you have any success stories that you've heard of?
Yeah, I mean, we've really been helping. I could think of one community in particular that didn't realize they can use their American Rescue Plan Act funds for this. So, you know, a lot of what I'm doing is educating and then arming people with the information they need to go to their leadership and say, hey, you know, we do deserve to use some of this funding. We know that we have funding. So honestly, you know, the easiest way to get anything funded right now is American Rescue Plan Act funds. It's funding that's already coming directly to your community. And I think, you know, you may find out that the funds have already been expended. They don't have to be expended till December of 2024. So I think a lot of communities were really conservative in how they spent that first half. And they're kind of trying to sort out how they're going to use the second half. But, you know, I would just, if you don't ask, you can't get the funds. So I'm happy to help you make that ask. Oh, nice note about EV grants. Sounds like some people, I've got some direct messages. Thank you all. Glad you're interested in the EV funding. I can't wait till that funding comes out because there's never, ever been an opportunity for public agencies to apply for EV funding directly to the federal government. We've funded, I've done some EV projects in the past where we had to get really creative and sort of fund them through, you know, either economic development or as parts of larger transportation projects. But this is exciting because you guys can actually bring these solutions to your community with a direct application to the federal government. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions.
I'm not seeing any on my end either. Any others? I'll just make a note. I know that it's, well, I guess for me as a third party observer, it's a little bit overwhelming, all of the opportunities that are available, and kind of intimidating, you know, thinking about trying to go after those opportunities. So I would just really encourage everybody on the call to reach out and get Amanda involved. That is absolutely what she's here for. And we would love to see you guys get funding for projects within your communities. So definitely don't hesitate. I think we have several of the account managers on the call today. Reach out to us and we're happy to set up something with Amanda individually so you guys can get some specified information on what might apply to your communities and how you can go about accessing that. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. We've got time, so we'll kind of hang around if anybody else comes up with something that they want to ask. But other than that, thank you guys so much for your time today, and enjoy the rest of the sessions. We appreciate your attendance. Thank you, guys.